Seminole State family. It is Nicole from the library, and you are joining us tonight for a NIGHTBRARY research rally. Tonight, we are going to sift. You don't know how to sift? Well, Ross and Jason are going to show you how. So let's get started.
Awesome intro. Thank you, Nicole from the library. Hi, everyone.
Howdy.
Jason. We're here with Ross and Nicole, and we are here to help you get an A, better than an A plus in all of your classes. And this is our research rally, part of our NIGHTBRARY series. And so thank you for joining us. I'll go ahead and pass the mic in case anyone wants to give any introductions.
Hi all. I'm Ross. I'm one of your librarians here. I kind of hang out. I'm Jason's neighbor at the Sanford Library. I also hang out at the Heathrow campus a little bit.
Yes. And Nicole also, all three of us, we're all at Sanford Library.
Yeah, we're in this office pod. So some students have come up to visit us and kind of found us by accident because they're like, what's this weird? And we have these orb lights, but we are in the aquarium. Okay. It's like our think tank here on campus at the Sanford Lake Mary Library. So yes, we're all three, boom, boom, boom. We can hear each other through the walls. We really enjoy working together. If you can't tell from us on here, just, freestyling with each other. We're buddies. So tonight is Research Rally. And like I said a minute ago, we're going to talk about the SIFT method. Now, the SIFT method can help you whether you're researching for English or a more advanced class, whatever program you're in, pretty much any assignment, right?
Any information needed. You can apply this anywhere. All
right. So I'm going to pop up. Oh, here, let me try to scroll out a little bit. So the SIFT method, it's what's the thing where it's letters that stand for words. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Acronym?
What is an acronym?
Okay. So SIFT is an acronym. So the S stands for
stop.
That's it. Just stop.
That's it.
Okay.
What that step asks you to do when you stop is to intentionally consider the source that you're looking at. What is it? Is this a blog post? Is this scholarly research? Who wrote it? Really, it just wants you to stop and ask some questions of yourself as you're looking at this. Like, what am I seeing? And it's not something I even think about all the time. As I'm looking at a piece of information, I have to tell myself sometimes, like, wait a minute, is this actually what I want? So anytime you look at a piece of information, that's the first thing you want to do is just know what you're getting into before you dive too deep,
Yeah, I think it's a good first step. It's actually kind of weird because, you want to get going, and the first step is stop. But it is. It's to say, hey, wait a minute. This information has come in from somewhere, right? I don't know, the World Wide Web, the library resources. Your uncle. I don't know where it's coming from. And I think you do have to just go, okay, now wait a minute. What's going on now? So I like that kind of reset right off the beginning. So that's our S. What's next?
Okay, so the next is I, and that is to investigate the source. So, all right, investigate. What does that really mean?
So what the investigating part of this is you'll often see a term called lateral reading when this comes up. And what that's asking you to do is don't just trust that one source at face value. Yes, you've stopped, you've thought about it. You say, hey, maybe this is a really good source. But what I want you to do here is look laterally. Look at other sources that are kind of related to. Do other sources agree with what you're reading? Is there anything like glaringly different about what you're seeing? Is there something in that source that makes you go, wait a minute, like that's a good time to start looking at something else just to verify. Maybe it's completely accurate, but you don't want to go too far until you've done a little bit of that checking.
Yeah, and I would also equate this too to like any sort of any sort of romantic overtures, right? So follow me here. So if somebody's like, "Hey, how's it going?" and you're like, "It's going." Like, "What's up?" and they're like, "Oh, hey." Like anytime we encounter someone, I at least, we're always doing that of like, "What's going on?" Like, "Are you asking for something?" Like, "Do you need something? Are you into me? What is this going on?" So I would equate the same thing here with this investigation. Like we do the same thing every day. We're always, say it's late at night and somebody's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" You're like, investigate the situation, right? I think it'd be the same as Publix. If I'm grabbing something and someone's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Oh, what? I didn't know." What? So when you're finding that information, I think you should stop, like, and then take a look and go, "All right, now what is this information? I like it. All right. So we have the S, we have the I. What's next?
All right. The next is the F.
Mm-hmm.
And that's find better coverage.
Right. So where this comes in is so you might have this source that you found. And it looks really good. You verified it. You've checked the author. They look pretty credible and all. But is it the right information for your needs? Right? Because, let's use that blog post example. Or let's say you saw something on Facebook and it was written by a guy with a PhD who seems like they know what they're talking about and all. But is the blog post really the source that you want to use as your evidence? So maybe what you could do is dig a little bit deeper. Did that guy or that woman, did they write something else deeper than this? Is this just like a synopsis of what they put into their research? Or maybe they're just giving you the cursory overview of it. So you may want to look and see what else is in that literature. Maybe there's something a little bit deeper or something that explains that concept a little bit better. So really just don't settle on that first source. It might be a great source too, but this is asking you to go that extra step too. Like after you've reviewed some sources, is it the right source? Could you find something a little bit better to meet your needs?
Okay. I think I want to interject here right quick before we go to the T. And I think that both of you would agree with me. Okay, so the whole stop thing. All right, look, if you don't investigate and find the better coverage, this is the place you want to spend time. And it's like trying to like convince your kids of something. No matter what you say, like, listen, don't touch the fire, it'll burn you. They think you're wrong no matter what. We're like, no, we're not just saying it for our own good. Here is the place to spend the time, because when you are down to the wire and you're writing that paper and you realize you don't have good enough information to do a passable paper, if you've been in that situation before, it's probably because you skated through on these steps: investigating, finding better coverage, really vetting your information. This is where you want to spend the time because it saves you time in the end. Am I right, or am I right? Right? I mean, for the most part, right? I mean, there can be some exceptions. I'm sure people have skated through and gotten an A on a paper. But this is the place to spend the time. And guess how you can even reduce the time that you spend investigating and finding better coverage, but still doing it well?
Hey, I'm going to take it back to the dating scenario again. If somebody's just like, brr, 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 you know what? Find better coverage. Okay, go find better coverage, because that's not working out. You want somebody to bring it. And it's the same thing with your academic research. If you're in college, or you're going to a direct connect, you're going to a 4-year university, you're going to have to come up with scholarly sources. You're going to have to come up with good material to reinforce your arguments. So yeah, think about, is this the best coverage? Or should I continue to look for better coverage? That's the F in the SIFT method.
And a librarian will help you with that. And they will save you time on these steps. They'll walk you through it, help you. You can make an appointment online. You can chat. Okay, you can call. You can come and meet us in person. So I should put the links to all that. We have them all over the place. Like, just come walk in the library and say, I need a librarian. Just scream it out, okay?
Yeah, because then it goes back to kind of what Ross was saying. Like, maybe you don't know where to find the better coverage, or maybe you don't know how, or maybe you aren't aware that the coverage that you've located is kind of, paltry, a little kind of flimsy, and maybe you don't realize that. The librarians can help. Good point, Nicole. All right, what's the T? What do we got?
Okay, so move 4 is T, and it's trace claims, quotes, and media to their original context.
Yeah. So I think this is a really crucial part of this here too, because if you read a newspaper, they might say, well, we talked to this source and they told us this. And you go, great. I trust you because you're a journalist and you've done this a long time. There's some of that there. But let's say I keep going back to that blog post or like a Facebook post my mom will send me, right? And they might reference a study in there. But here, what this step asks you to do is go find that study that they're referencing. Maybe they're reporting it exactly the way that it was originally posited, and they're using the information responsibly, and everything's great. But maybe not, because every time you're looking at a source that's referencing another source, which is referencing another source, you're getting further and further away from that original claim. So you're not exactly sure if it's being synthesized the same way each time, because everybody's going to have their own spin on it, the way they're using it.
It's just like a game of telephone, or
game of telephone.
He said, she
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
We all know if you hear someone that was at an event and they tell someone else about the event, and that person tells another person, and that person tells you, you have a whole different version.
That's right, Nicole. It's just like a game of gramophone. That's what I heard. It's just like gramophone.
Gramophone.
Oh, wait, did I mix that up? Aha, just like the game telephone where you're mixing things up.
But that's really important as you're doing research, because in that original study, what you can do is you can take that evidence and you can synthesize it through your own lens to make your own point or to support your own claims that you're making, right? Because you're interpreting it yourself. You're not interpreting somebody else's interpretation of it. So it's always a good practice if you can. Sometimes you can't. I mean, there's a lot of information that I look for on a regular basis that I just can't get because I don't have access to it immediately. But you can try to trace it back as far as you can, and then you have a more, realistic view of what that information was originally intended to be.
Yeah, a lot of times when I tell students, when you're doing your college research right here at Seminole State, you're kind of becoming a detective, right? Or a lawyer, right? You're always kind of going back and being like, who said that? Well, where do they say it? Okay, well, I'll go interview them. And you just keep going and keep going and keep going. But once you get to that source, once you get to the original, then you're like, aha, that's the person who usually has all the answers, right? They're the ones who actually did the research. They didn't find it from, right, like Ross was saying, some blog or someone took a picture and then they emailed to someone in a forward and they're like, hey, did you see this? And you're like, I don't know, kinda, but it's not the exact original person. So I do agree with that. That's the T. So trace all the claims. So this is a good method. Let's go over it again. So we have SIFT. So what's the S? What are we doing again? We're stopping. Stop.
Before you do anything, stop and consider what you're looking at.
Right. So say you've done something, say your research assignment is on fill in the blank, whatever the word is, and you just start Googling that. Yes, I would stop. I think I do that talking out loud now. I think when I Google something and use Google as my search, whatever comes up, I do stop and read whatever that information is, but I don't just look at the top thing. No. I look through a couple things. So that's the stop. All right, what's next?
All right, and I'm putting the link to the to this Los Angeles Valley College library that has, you'll see when I'm scrolling down and through, they have a lot of like ancillary sources to like explain the steps. All right, step 2.
Investigate, right? So what does a detective do, right? I mean, you have to be a detective. You have to investigate. You have to find out, where is this coming from? Who wrote it? Why was it written? But I think you're asking yourself these questions all the time too. Like, what if there's something kind of that's been in your fridge for kind of like a really long time? Don't you kind of give it a little smell test? You don't just eat it. You don't just drink it. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know you guys watching. I don't know you, but I would give it the sniff test. I would investigate what's going on. Otherwise, you might get in trouble. Your stomach might say no good.
Yeah,
right, so
there's some cool videos on here. Yeah, there's lots of information here to expound on this. Okay, move 3.
Yeah, and that's you're finding your better coverage there. Like you can always find another source, right? Like, so maybe I saw the phrase on that page there, trading up. That's a really good way of looking at it, right? Like you might have a great magazine article about your topic, but maybe if you had that like scholarly evidence to support your point, maybe it would just help you make a stronger point. So that's a question you have to ask yourself. Maybe a magazine article is perfectly okay. Maybe you don't need to go do too deep, or maybe it was helping you make that specific point that you're making. But you could always try to just see what else is out there, because you might run across that better, just a better source overall.
Yeah, and you can't really and whatever you find, like save it, like bookmark it, whatever, wherever, however you keep sources, email it to yourself, save it to your Google Drive, whatever you do, because like okay, you could move 3, find better coverage, but keep like if whatever you were just looking at, make sure you save it, because once again, when you're down to the wire and getting closer to writing the paper and turning it in, like if that's the time you need more information because your paper isn't long enough, or you haven't really been able to argue the point well enough, you don't have all, you don't want to have to go researching again. You want to go to your body of research you've already gone through, right? And I mean, I don't know about y'all, but tell me, I used to tell students, look, like if your paper isn't long enough, or it's just you're not able to write as much as you are supposed to about the topic, don't add new information about your topic. Expand on what you've already written about. Expand on what's already in your paper. Don't be like, oh, let me add like a 5th way to like explain this. Don't do that. That's not the time to add. Expand on what's already in there. You can do it. And usually that's, you end up with a better argument, and you end up with the paper that's the length it's supposed to be. So save everything, like everything. Even if you get one sentence from a source, that's something. Maybe you just need one more sentence. You need that one little piece of info. All right.
All right, speaking of the one more little piece of info, our final rewind is going to be the T. So trace the claims, like figure it out. Where did it come from? What's the original source? Again, get your magnifying glass, become a detective, really look at this information. Why? A number of reasons. But some of the reasons are pretty obvious, and I'll reiterate them to you now. One, it's your paper. This is your class, right? This is your grade. You want to get your diploma with your name on it. So get invested. Hopefully you get the green light from your professor to pick your topic. And once you discover your topic, really get into it and go like, okay, well, where did this come from? But if you're not really excited about the research that you're getting into, yeah, you might not trace it, but I'm challenging you to do so, because I think that you should really get into the research that you're doing and really make that research paper, that make it your poem, make it your song, make it your art piece, make it your performance, because this is what we're doing, right? You're here for the class and we're here to teach you. So yeah, I do like that method, Ross.
But with the tracing part of that too, something else I just thought of in the moment here is I every semester I get somebody who will ask me, they're like, well, how do I quote a source that's quoted in another source? And my answer is usually, why don't we just go try to find that original source instead of making your life complicated with the citation? Yep. We can probably track down that first source, and it's going to be better evidence, and it's just going to be easier to work with overall. So that's something to consider too.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a couple of things for the SIFT method, and then I do have a couple slides that I wanted to kind of piggyback on that. So if you want,
you want to share screen?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and if you could. So we looked at the SIFT method, and I kind of wanted to get you started, as I alluded to, a couple of things on basically 6 steps to get you success here in your college class. So whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and share the screen. I should have it shared. Do I not have it? Hold on, Stan.
No, I don't see it down there.
Okay, there it is. Boomtown. Here we are.
Boom, added to the stream.
Okay, great. So these are my 6 steps to success. And by all means, everyone can kind of jump in. So, you start your class, you're looking at the syllabus, you're looking at your modules in Canvas. That's basically going to be the first step, is definitely realizing your information needs. So we talked about the SIFT method, but if you don't know how many sources you need, or you don't know what kind of sources are required, meaning is it a blog, like Ross was talking about, or is it an academic journal? Is it the World Wide Web? Or is it specifically a library database? Folks, you need to know that information before you can do anything else. So that's almost before the stop. You almost have to like stall and then stop, right? So read the syllabus, check if there's a rubric, please read the rubric, because that's basically telling you, do this, get the A. Do this, get the A. It's pretty.
Yeah, they're laying it right out there for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when you think about that, that's kind of going to be the recipe for life's success too. Meaning if you follow instructions here, you're probably going to follow the instructions moving forward. And basically those instructions are going to get you to where you want to go. So the real talk is step number 1, always explain the assignment and state what is needed. right? So once you go, okay, I need 5 sources, it's due at the end of the term, I need a 10-page double-spaced research paper and so on and so forth, then we want to discover our topic, right? And I use the word discover for an example because you really want to have that, that's what I'm going to do it on, right? Now, given if the professor says, hey, you have to choose from 1 or 2 things, clearly your choices are a little bit smaller. But if you have free reign to pick anything, I'm challenging you to pick something that excites you. Maybe it's something that's related to your pathway or your career field or discipline, but you always have a backup and maybe a backup. So try to settle on your A and settle on your B and then maybe have a C. And Ross, I'll throw you a curveball here. Why would I want to have a backup or even a backup plan during my research? What are some roadblocks that I might hit?
Well, I mean, one thing that happens often when I work with students or even do my own research is you might have this really great idea. Like, oh, I'm going to find all of this evidence and it's going to be great. I'll be able to write 10 pages on it. And you don't find the evidence that you're looking for. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, I mean, I just ran across that the other day when I was working on some sociology research on there. I was like, oh, surely there's hundreds of articles written on this. And they're really, I couldn't find them. So that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, good point, Ross. Sometimes on the speech classes, someone will come up with something, they get to pick their own topic for a speech, and they're like, oh, I really want to pay homage to one of my family members, and they recently passed, and what they had was this very, very, very specific, rare sort of disease that nobody's ever heard of, maybe even 2 people in the history of the universe have ever had. And so guess what, my friends? Finding the information for that is going to be very, very challenging, but you've already picked it. It's your A. That was your first one. So you've immediately hit a roadblock. You can't even stall or stop yet because you're going, oh my gosh, I can't find this thing anywhere. That would be my prime example, my prime reason for having a backup and even a backup plan. And
also because research is you're trying to answer questions and you don't really know what you're going to find. You have an idea, like your hypotheses or your thesis, right? I've had a student, I very gently had to tell her, I think it was a girl. I was like, you might end up like unproving your assertion. Now, I'm like, do you want to write a paper on that? Because when we started to look and discover the topic, basically some preliminary research, a feeler, I was like, it looks like what we can find in the databases is like disproving your assertion. And, it is what it is, but you have to make a choice. Did she want to write a paper on that? Maybe yes, maybe no.
Correct. And remember your due date. Remember how long it needs to be. Remember how many topics, selections that you are desiring, how many sources you need. And then remember, it may be something very, very broad that's very difficult to narrow down. Like, I'm going to do my paper, you guys, on pollution. Okay, did you mean water pollution, land pollution, air pollution? Like what? And you go, I'm going to switch to obesity, like something completely different, which is okay. Just make sure you check in with the professor and that you're able to change where needed. So you realize your information need, you know what you need to do, you pick your topic. Now you start getting into the creation of your action plan. Right? You can see the 2 artists there. They're actually painting each other, which I find funny. So you do whatever you need to do, right? And as Nicole was saying, sometimes you can put stuff in your Google Drive directly from the databases. So some folks still like to use paper and pen. And then you have to remember that's probably going to be another step because you're probably going to type your papers these days. But I do encourage you to write quickly and edit slowly. That's something I learned along the way. Just start writing it all out, and then you could start narrowing and editing down. But you want a research plan that works for you. And yes, Nicole and Ross.
Is this like an outline?
Yeah, we're all librarians, yeah, but we all have different ways of doing it.
Because it's not an outline for the paper. It's more okay.
It's kind of how am I, like you said a moment ago, Nicole, you said you want to save stuff or come back to it. It's kind of like you want to put some of these things maybe into your cart, right? Or you can email them to yourself. But the 3 of us, we're going to have different approaches to come up with a paper, but that's where you come up with it, right? That's where you go, hey, this is my action plan. Here's how I'm going to tackle this. First, I'm going to look at this, and then I'm going to take a look at this, and then maybe I'm just going to write some stuff here. But it's a work in progress. But if you don't have this, Think about if you never knew how to put gasoline in the car or drive. I mean, you had to learn how to do that, right? And so that changes if you're in a Pinto or a Ferrari, right? But the process remains the same. So this is the same thing. Once you do this for this class, guess what? You're going to advance, then you're going to transfer, and then you're going to do it a junior year and senior year. And so then you're going to get your degree. Then you're going to go join the workforce. And guess what? You're going to create your own action plan each time. DJ Khaled, another one. Okay. All right. So there's that one. All right. So let's go on to the next one. So now we're actually getting into the research. And so now is where you're really collecting all your information. You're using the filters in the databases. Same thing that you do if you're buying shoes on Amazon, right? You don't just put in the word shoes. You got to start, what color, what are the size, what's the brand, overnight shipping, so on and so forth. Once you kind of start narrowing it down to about that little sliver there of space, right? Practice patience, but keep up your curiosity. As we mentioned, there can be a roadblock there, and you can have to turn the car around and drive back down the alley, but you will get to your destination. So be patient, but also keep that authentic inquiry, meaning really get into the topic you discovered. It's your topic. It's your paper. So try to investigate all the sources. And anybody have anything else to add on to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I always just say, like, one of the best qualities of a researcher as you're doing your assignments is just to be open-minded to possibilities. You're going to run across sources that you never thought you'd see, and you might go, wow, like I didn't consider that idea. And that could change the whole shape of your paper even. Like, if you get that idea and then you say, man, I want to trace that idea down. So, like, a lot of that stuff just kind of comes from the serendipity of being curious, going, how else can I phrase this? Or what else is out there on this?
For sure. So you realize your information need, you looked at the syllabus, you have to do a 5-page paper, and you need 3 academic library sources. Got it. Then you discover your topic. All right, I know what I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on water pollution. Great. Then you start creating your outline, okay, I want to talk about this part of the, plastic in the water and maybe how fish are getting caught. And maybe I want to talk about sea levels. Oh, okay, great. I kind of have a map, right? Now, once you start researching, once you get that information, you really want to evaluate. We talked a lot about that during the SIFT process too. Like, where is this information coming from? And you determine the authority, because the authority changes all the time. Everyone doesn't need a PhD, right? You can have the old timer who lives in your community, who knows everything about that lake and that crazy tree in your town. And you're like, well, that guy knows everything. He's lived here his whole life, but he doesn't have a PhD. So what? He's not the authority on that lake and that tree. So these kinds of things happen all the time. It's all dependent on what is your professor asking you to provide. Are they scholarly sources? Do they need to come from an academic journal? Or if they say you pick the source and you tell us why it should be used in your paper, then as I mentioned, now you have kind of a green light to evaluate and say, okay, this is why I'm trusting this source with this information. I find it credible. And that's the challenge that you would present in your paper. Go ahead.
And like you might need, like, let's say you were talking about like misinformation on a certain topic. You might actually go to like Joe Schmo's blog or whatever it may be, who's making claims that have been disproven elsewhere. And his blog or their blog is like an example. Like, so you're using that information, not like literally, but like to prove a point or to show, hey, this is a real person and maybe they have like a club and it's like Joe Schmo's club or cult or something of misinformation. You can use that as a source, but you use it a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where authority is contextual. Well, that wouldn't be authority is contextual. It would just be.
But if you did have Joe Schmo's blog, let's pick on Joe for a minute. He has a blog,
we'll pick on Joe
Schmo, and you can't find anything else on the entire internet. You can't find that Joe Schmo went to a verified college, has a degree or anything. Do you guys see that I'm already starting to water down the credibility for Joe Schmo? Now he may be the most good looking, the best throw. He could throw a football 1,000,000 miles. He's the coolest dude in the world. But when I'm looking at the information provided, there's no email address. I can't get a hold of him to follow up with any questions. Never published anywhere. Has no PhD. Didn't go to college. for my college research paper, I'm starting to go, peace out, Joe Blow, Joe Schmo blog, right? I mean, I'm done with it. Want to know why? Because another one, there's going to be another source right around the corner. And we want to do this efficiently and effectively because clock is ticking, right? So you do want to evaluate all of your sources, and all of us have at least master's degrees on this call, and we are faculty members. So the final thing that we want to do after we evaluate all the information is, on that note, you do want to give credit. Give credit where credit's due. Credit all of your sources. Always, you want to provide the in-text citations. You want to make sure that you understand what the citation style is recommended for that course. Sometimes a professor will say you can do whatever you want, just keep it consistent. But some professors will say, no, it has to be ALA or MLA or APA or Chicago, and it's probably going to be the one that you aren't really familiar with. So you're going to have to get in touch with that. So we're able to help you. But real talk, you should cite it if you didn't write it, right? And you always want to say where you got it from, because that's adding to what you're putting in your paper. You're going, see? Ross said it's true. Ross has a PhD and he's the smartest dude in the world. Well, Nicole says it. She has a PhD and she's the smartest person in the world. So based on that, right, and my other sources, you're kind of adding to it. And by the way, we do this in real life, don't we? You say, hey, did you hear what happened? You go, who'd you hear that from? Who is the source? Or flip side, you go, huh? Joe Blow told you that? Oh, you guys know Joe Blow. He's he's not reliable. Right?
Yeah.
So try to use your real life situations in your research. It's not much different. It isn't much different. You know, we do it all the time too. Evaluate. What do you do before you cross the street, my friends? Do you look both ways? I mean, you know, we're evaluating all the time. I mean, it's the same thing. If you don't, bad stuff's going to happen. I would argue the same thing could happen in your college research paper. If you don't evaluate it and you just put in some source, a professor's going to ding you and go, hey, not a good source. You didn't read the syllabus. Points off. No good. I mean, that's just the way it is. So those are my 6 steps to success. And thank you for letting me share.
Yeah. And I mean, like long form into the future, if you're enrolled here, you're in college, you're doing whatever program, whatever, I don't care what program it is. Your goal is to be like a part of some type of, have a career at some point, right? So when you're in a career and you're gainfully employed, like, okay, the expectation is that you are going to be able to evaluate information, whether it be to build a bridge or to assess a client for treatment. It carries through. And I'm just pointing that out kind of as like the mom and me as like, think long term, you know, like it all matters.
You would also know who the scholars are in that field too, because you've researched them and studied them. If I said, hey, I want to talk about professional basketball, and I didn't say Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James, you know, I started talking about other people, you'd be like, well, wait a minute. Those aren't necessarily the scholars or experts in that particular field, right? I use that as an example, but this is where that comes into play. What do you got, Ross?
Well, I was going to add that, like, since we're talking like the workplace example in there too, is the thing I hear more and more from industry now is you're going to hear evidence-based stuff, evidence-based design, evidence-based thinking, because your employers are going to expect that before you do something, you have some evidence to back up. They're not going to give you $1 million to do a project without some, hey, I reviewed all of this literature and I came up with this plan, and that's why you should give me $1 million to do this project. So, I mean, start now, and you'll just get in the habit of doing it, providing that evidence. Well, you know, like to Jason's example there. Oh, yeah, well, I heard this. Well, where'd you hear it? Well, I heard it from here. And that's why I trust it. And now you're telling your audience, like, where you got your information from and why you trust it and why they should trust you.
And think about this. If you don't remember anything that we said and you tune everything out and you're like, those guys are dum-dums, think about your money and think about your bank account. Now, do you want to trust someone with your money? Do you want to trust someone telling you how much money is in your account at all times? That is trust. And that is what I'm talking about here. You want to trust that. What about with your family and friends? Do you want to go to a doctor with a medical degree, or do you want to go to your friend down the street who one time went to one medical school class? You know what I'm saying? Like, where would you want to go here? Why would you even talk to the other person? You want to go to the doctor. By the way, that's why when you go to the doctor or the dentist, what's the first thing you see in there? All the degrees everywhere, because they're saying, hey, this is where we went and this is what we do. So just keep all this in mind. It's not an easy process. It's, just getting into this, getting your feet wet, but the librarians are here to help. And we've given you some different methods for approaching it. We gave you the SIFT method. Then we also talked about some steps for research success at Seminole State College.
Yeah, and I'm putting the URL, the tiny URL for librarian appointments in the chat. So once again, like you're more than welcome. In fact, before we went live, Jason was like, I never get appointments. No one ever makes an appointment with me. So this is a great opportunity. Jason was
Make
like,
an appointment with me.
Yeah.
Well, everyone just kind of pops in. They either send an email or they just pop into the library. But it's based on your busy schedule, right?
Yeah. And like, there's lots of different options. Like you could schedule to come in to visit. You could say, well, never mind. I just want to chat. And you could go on our 24/7 chat, which if you Google Seminole State Library, basically Seminole State Library. I don't even think you need to put in college. You'll get to our page. We have our chat widget right there. It's 24/7. And besides Jason and Ross and I, there's a whole team of librarians that work at the college, or also UCF Direct Connect librarians. Like there's a whole team of people waiting to serve you. So, hey, I mean, take advantage of it because we can help you with any of this stuff.
Yep, absolutely. We're here to help. So we'll be doing research rallies every other Tuesday this summer. From 6 to 7 p.m. and all that information is in Raider Connect. So if you're watching this video and you want to join us live next time, by all means, pop in, say hello. We're here to help. We want to help you get better than an A in all your courses, okay?
Oh yeah, if you Google Raider Connect, it will bring you to Seminole State College Raider Connect, and that's where pretty much everything is. So exactly.
It all happens.
All right. I'm gonna put the focus real quick before we wrap it up on Ross, because when Ross got on the call, he was putting away his bass guitar.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do a little bass.
Guitar.
Let's get a little
regular. Can you like riff us out?
Give us a little noodle. We need a little noodle.
I mean, you won't hear anything.
Yeah, we can hear it. Turn it up.
Okay, let's try it.
This is
plugged in, but do you want to hear a guitar sound?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, let's try it.
Right. Thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Research Rally. For Ross, Nicole, I'm Jason. Thanks for watching. Best of luck in all your classes. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.